Our next session is social media plus multimedia equals effective multi-channel marketing. Please welcome speaker Michael Terpin, CEO of SocialRadius.
Thank you, Vi. So I'm here to talk about social media. Obviously, I'll have a few disagreements with the last gentleman on when can launch it. And specifically, I've spoken here a couple of years in a row on various aspects of social media. I've also spoken to the East Coast show and the European show. So I try not to repeat from year to year, so I'm not going to go into a lot of the basics, blogger outreach, Twitter, Facebook. What I'm going to talk about today in particular is the developments that have happened in multimedia as it pertains to social, and some of these new networks that have really changed the game in a lot of ways, and what that means now as a multi-channel marketer. Okay, so just a quick review of what social media means. Social media is as broad a term in some ways as marketing. But within marketing, you can certainly look and say, okay, within marketing, there's advertising, there's PR, there's direct response TV, there's direct mail, there's email. And so there's categories that have started to evolve within social media. I've got a book coming out in the spring called Digital 3.0. I'll be going into a number of those areas there as well as what's coming up next. But basically, you can be pretty safe in just taking most social media and taking the category of blogs, which was the original social media, social networks, and social platforms. And all of those now are starting to increasingly include photos and video. So within blogs, you've got your traditional blogs that started out with some very old formats that were expensive and hard to use, movable type. When WordPress came around about 7-8 years ago, it really started changing how quickly you could get a blog up and running. It's free. You can get the version that's free that you just install yourself and there's no ads on it. You can put your own ads on it. It's a great platform. However, in 2009, Tumblr started to come to the fore. And this Digital 3.0 that I talk about is sort of this new era of the web and digital marketing that has happened since the 08-09 crash. Most news cycles tend to happen with after we come out of crashes. And that's when you got location-based and you got a lot of broadband. Social media started developing to include broadband, which then meant it was able to more effectively include video and photos. So one of the most important developments in the blog world since that in recent years is Tumblr. How many people here are using Tumblr in their marketing? Okay, we got one. What I'm going to tell you about Tumblr now is going to sound like what people were talking about Facebook a couple years ago. But it's already pretty big. I mean, it got started by a 19-year-old kid. I think he's about 24, 25 now. There's 70 million blogs that are on Tumblr. 30 billion posts and 13 billion page views every month. And that's been growing. It's highly engaged audience, and what it is essentially it's a blog network that makes it much easier to go and put photos on. It's really a photo blog network. It's got twice the retention rate of Twitter. I mean, a lot of people, they talk about, oh, people sign up for Twitter, they tweet a few times, they drop off. WordPress, it's even worse. Hello world, I'm blogging. There's 200 million people who've started a blog, and not very many of those are still blogging today, other than the top bloggers and the thought leaders and the enthusiasts. Huge amount of sharing. It's a very young demo. Some of the most active people in their teens and early 20s, if that's the market you go after, and they blog about fashion, they blog about beauty, they blog about a lot of these categories that are near and dear to the multi-channel marketer's heart. But yet half of its base is over 25, so there's a lot of 30 and 40-year-olds on Tumblr as well. And what's great is it works both as a gateway and a destination for other social media. So here's a typical Tumblr post. So you'll notice over here somebody's talking about how Ralph Lauren inspired this collar here. You can then click on that, and it can take you all sorts of places. You can be embedding that link from your Twitter. So you can be building Twitter and saying, hey, check out this new bracelet, and it goes to your Tumblr account. A little bit less of a turnoff if somebody's just started following you and all of a sudden they go to an order page or they go to an affiliate link. It's very soft. It goes to a cool blog that's got what you're doing. And then from there, people can go pin things from it, so it'll react on the back end with Pinterest, YouTube, Ustream. And then eventually, all these things can eventually, get you to the landing page where you take the order. YouTube is both a platform and a network and a channel. So as a channel, it's certainly the largest of platforms for video blogging. And how many people here have a YouTube channel? Okay, a little bit more than Tumblr then. If you have any video assets, which I know you all do, you should have and promote your YouTube channel because, as Jesse James said, he robs banks because that's where the money is. YouTube and Facebook are where the traffic is. So these are the types of blogs, and this counts for both WordPress as well as other ones, but it also is where you can get people, once you have content up, to write about it. Editorial blogs, everything from Wall Street Journal blog, a USA blog, to every other type of media, thought leaders, enthusiasts. We had one client that 70% of their sales the first year were blog posts, and we got them reviewing their product. So within the networks, the ones that I put in red are the ones that have photo and video elements as a major part of them. All of them actually have some. You can obviously have a link off of Twitter to a video, but it's not inherently a video or photo-based network. But Facebook, Google+, which also then has very interesting links in with search and with Gmail, Pinterest, which didn't exist 2 years ago. And I'll give my email address, so I'm happy to send this out. And I'll also put this on SlideShare, so you can just take it off of there. SlideShare is a great service that basically was recently acquired by LinkedIn, where you can take your presentations, whether they include video or not, and they go viral. We've had as many as 300,000 people download a SlideShare. And again, with no paid media, just organic, and going after other bloggers to pick up things. We'd mentioned YouTube and then Flickr. Flickr was sort of your original network for photos. Seems kind of quaint now. Here's the numbers of the top social media websites. You can see the lion's share is Facebook and YouTube. This is the last comprehensive one from June. But 62% Facebook, 20% YouTube. Look how far down the charts everything else is. Twitter's 2% and everything else is less than 1%, including Google+. So, Facebook, main thing you need to know there is it's not dead yet. Sure, its stock's not doing very well, and that's mainly because it was never worth $100 billion based on its current market, but it still has 950 million users. And they just reported this week that, because they were criticized for not moving to mobile yet, 500 million people are using Facebook on mobile. And so what does that mean when you're using it on mobile? Usually your mobile has has a camera on the cell phone. So you're able to, and that's how Instagram took off so quickly, growing to 30 million users in a little bit over a year just on the iPhone platform. So Facebook is always the big, 800-pound gorilla in the room, and when they start making moves on mobile, maybe they'll be worth that 100 billion again. But what you need to know is that when you have things on Facebook, it's a closed-loop network, unlike Twitter. Twitter is actually the first thing you should be getting started in to get your word out in terms of the big three social networks. But for people don't realize how big it is for photos. There are 6 billion new photos uploaded to Facebook every month. That's more than the entire amount that have been put on Flickr since it started many years ago. And again, like Tumblr, this is a great part of the gateway situation. I've always recommended clients that they use Facebook to collect people once they're interested. And when someone's interested, it's not a lead gen, it's sort of a lead conversion. JibJab gets 20% conversion on their Facebook page, but they use everything else to go and lead people there. Because once you're talking, you're only talking to your friends, and you can build that number of friends, you can build that number of fans, but it's never going to show up in the search engines, so you have to use other social media that does show up in the search engines. And I'm more of the belief that you should control most of your top 10 organic, it's very expensive. You're going to try to buy 10 links to cover a category, and people are going to say, okay, where's the first organic link? But with social media, you're able to control your destiny in a lot of ways. If you have a Wikipedia page, when we get to platforms, that will show up in the top 10 if you've got a Wikipedia page that really sticks. Your Facebook, your Twitter, individual tweets, Google+, we sometimes will go with clients who have a problem with, very commonly, where they've got something that is bad on Wikipedia, and we need to sort of like get links to be able to go and sort of move down the bad content. And the same thing with different parts of social media that affect search. Okay, so I was hoping to do a live demonstration, but I was then told that we didn't have a video here, so I'm just going to walk you through this. One thing very interesting, I think I mentioned as one of the bullet points here, this viral loop. So you can go, and this is within the last month, and take a photo post and say, I'm going to go and have a streaming concert or a streaming demo of your product at a certain time. And so Noelle Bean is an up-and-coming pop singer out of Dallas, Texas. And she has been, for a couple of months now, doing a Sunday night chat with her fans. And it's very simple. She'll just pop this up, and then when she's live, she'll pop it up, and other people will then share it, and they'll say, oh, Bean is talking now. And so it's, hey there, let's chat, shall we? I may play a song or two if you stick around. And then she tells you what time it is. And as soon as you click on that, you then go into this. So this one happens to be on Stick'em. Ustream does it as well. You can also do this with Google Hangouts. And so what you'll be doing here is you'll go in, and in this case, you'll see she's had 35,000 people who have gone and interacted with her on Stick'em. And this is for somebody who's only got, I think, 5,000 or 6,000 people following her on Twitter. So it's much more interactive, and it's something that much more emulates the model of the sort of unintended browsing experience. Oh, this is interesting. Let me check out this video, and this live session. So I predict this is going to become a very big thing in the multi-channel world. Google Plus. It's growing fast, but as you can see, it's still a very small portion of the overall universe. It's less than 1% just of even social network traffic. A number of people in my company think that it's going to be dead within a year. I'm not quite that pessimistic, just because they have so many hooks on search, and they have so many ways that they can affect search. And really, they're only about a year and a half old network now. So they've wrapped in Picasa. Picasa, of course, is their Flickr-like photo sharing version. And they've wrapped in the ability that when you have somebody else who is on Gmail and you're answering their email, it'll pop up that they have a Gmail, that they have a Google Plus profile, and ask you to follow them. A very interesting thing happens at that point. So this is what a search for my name is if I'm not on Google Plus. So the number one that shows up is LinkedIn, because I've been on LinkedIn forever. I got a lot of people following me for LinkedIn. I've been on since 2002. Then my Twitter. Then I've got a link to my PR agency. I've got a link to the social media company. I've got my Facebook. Way down the list is my Google profile, my Google Plus profile. That's a browser that I'm not signed in as a Google Plus member. When I sign in from the browser where I have my email, comes up number one. So Google does mess with the search rankings of people who are in their network. So their end of the day play is that if they get 200 million people signing up and they're moving toward that number on G+, even if there's not the kind of engagement and ad buys on Google Plus itself, they're able to tweak what people see in search. And so I always suggest that if you are on Google Plus, and you should be on Google Plus, make sure you keep an extra browser, because then you can see how things organically look. What is that, your brain on drugs, your brain without drugs? I mean, it's your brain on Google Plus and without Google Plus. So this is something we did for a international dating company. Very simple, but it was very effective. And it was basically just putting up pictures of the girls that were that they were featuring as here's a girl you want to date this week or whatever. And it was the girl of the day or the girl of the week. And they then led that to a conversion page, and they got 2% sign up off of this. And it was just, and then they would tweet it out and also put it on Google Plus and on Facebook. And we managed that all for them to be able to, hey, check out our new Lady of the Week. And then you could see her bio, and we had a Tumblr page for that. So again, all this working together and then leading to a 2% conversion for a paid dating site. Pinterest obviously is how many people here are using Pinterest? Okay, so a little bit bigger than Tumblr, but smaller than YouTube channels. Pinterest is just skyrocketing. It's just skyrocketing. It's primarily women. So if you sell to women, it was originally, I think, 95% women. Now it's down into like the 70-ish range. But it's become a top 5 network in the last 18 months. And well, the way it works is you go in, you pin things, and you say, this is what I want. And for example, we've used this for one fairly female-oriented audience, which was the Magic Show, client of ours. It's the #1 fashion trade show. It's here in Las Vegas twice a year. But we also did it for one of the sister Advanced Star shows, which is, okay, so that was for 80,000 buyers attending. And we also did it for the International Motorcycle Show, which was a mix of men and women. It was primarily men. They pinned their favorite motorcycles. And then we were able to go out and drive traffic to that and drive Twitter and Facebook traffic as well. So very early could be very effective, particularly if you've got a sexy looking product. Platforms, platforms is sort of a catch-all for everything else that's in a network and isn't a blog. It's a very important area that we find a lot of places will ignore and don't. If you've got something, a product that you've ever had written about someplace, it can be in a blog, it can be start with your own website, it could be a review. You have the fodder to build a Wikipedia presence, and Wikipedia is, consistently a top 10 website. It's usually around number 4, number 5 overall, and that will then help in search. Lead to something that you can curate. You have to, of course, keep an eye on it in case competitors are trying to go in and put some bad things in there, but then a Wikipedia will sort of moderate, and there's strategies of sort of keeping your version winning. Social answers are another area that we've found a lot of success with. So somebody asks a question about, in places like Yahoo Answers, which you saw was one of the top 5 networks, social networks, believe it or not. LinkedIn has a very robust answers category. There's specific answer networks like Quora, eHow, and people will go all over the place and ask questions. Where can I get a good purse for under $100? How can I lose weight the fastest? Are any of those devices for looking younger, do they work? And you find those things, you curate answers, you do it transparently, you say you're with a company, or you perhaps have somebody who has used the product to transparently use it in their own name. And we've been able to get 20-25% of what they call best answers for companies using that. The one in red is the one that's most video oriented, and that's the one that I'm currently the most excited about for this industry. I could do an entire presentation on this alone, which is crowdfunding via Kickstarter and Indiegogo. So this is something that we did for Bosley, which is on the answer side. Again, got 10,000 Twitter followers just to this one alone, and then also we had 25% best answers. So Kickstarter and Indiegogo. How many people here have done a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo campaign? None? I'm predicting that a year from now, at least a third of the audience will say yes, and it was great. So how many people know what Kickstarter and Indiegogo are? Okay. So we're living in very interesting times, and these are social platforms. Indiegogo started first. It started in 2008. I actually met Slava, the CEO, when we were speaking at Sundance, and he was kind of running around saying, I'm going to have people make films $100 at a time. And I was like, okay, calm down, Slava. And now he's, has over $100 million of creative projects funded. Kickstarter took the Indiegogo model and just made a few tweaks, and they launched in 2009. 2009, they had almost no revenue. This year, they will have over $300 million in revenue. And so the way Kickstarter and Indiegogo work, they're rewards-based funding. You can't raise equity in a company. That's something that's going to become legal in January under the Jobs Act. And there are a whole slew of other companies like Crowdfunder in Santa Monica that do that. And but I like to say it's not stock options, it's wine futures when you're talking about a Kickstarter and Indiegogo. You're saying, I have a cool product, I want you to buy it, I need money to buy it, you're going to help me, and I'm going to let you have it for half price. There's a company right here in Las Vegas that raised $1 million to build an iPhone-controlled robot that basically just drives your iPhone around the room with another iPhone. They raised $1 million in 30 days. All they did was basically say, we're going to sell this for 200, we'll let you have for 100 if you help us. And they had some other things that worked, like T-shirts and hats and banners and stickers. We've done a couple of Kickstarter campaigns. The number one category right now is film. The number two category is gadgets, and we're actually getting ready to launch a couple of gadgets. But the most successful Kickstarter for gadgets is something called the Pebble Watch. It's a watch that'll let you read your email on your watch. They raised $11 million in 60 days. And they're falling behind on schedule developing. But if you're testing products, this is something to consider in terms of if you can tell a creative story in video, which is a key part of this, and everybody here we know can tell good stories in video, and then be able to go and get the right engagement through social networks and through blogs. With the documentary film, it was a documentary on the life of Tesla, and we ended up getting Wired to write about it, TechCrunch, Mashable. We got 60 blog posts in 30 days, and they actually exceeded the 35,000 they were looking for. With the Transmedia project, we had one tweet. Russell Crowe tweeted about it, and that raised $3,000. So it's an interesting scenario that's developing. And right now, all this $300 million just for Kickstarter has been raised by 3 million people who are on the platform. Of those 3 million people on the platform, 70% of them joined in the last 90 days. So you can see where this market's going. I predict that this time next year, the two major crowdfunding platforms, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and we'll probably have some other competition. By then, we'll have over $1 billion, and I think this market should get involved. So I think we're running out of time a little bit. These are just some of the clients that we've worked with. This is who I am. I'm the founder of MarketWire. I also have been doing social media marketing since 2003, and it's a spin-off of a PR firm that we launched the AOL Greenhouse, America Online, Earthlink, a few other folks like that. And that's what we do. And that's me. That's my email address. That's my direct mobile number, and I'll take some questions. Yes? So if you go to Kickstarter, they actually have a list of the percentage that are funded by category. I think film was like 35%. But really what works is something that's a story that can be told visually, and that you can offer a reward that somebody would say, most people just don't do it for charity. They don't do it to say, hey, I'm going to give $100 because I think this person's cool, or I'm like, giving here instead of the United Way. And it's good to have high rewards and low rewards. Of the $75,000 we raised for this Transmedia project, 2 of them were $10,000 rewards where you're able to go in, meet the cast and crew, get an executive producer title, et cetera, and then a lot of them were just like, people to sign up for, I think the minimum was like $1 to just be able to read a private blog about it. Anyone else? Okay, so yes. What's the best social media for spiders? Right. Facebook is a closed network. LinkedIn is a closed network. So Google Plus is open for anything that you actually post as being open. I mean, technologically, Google Plus is the best network. It just got started late, but it will let you go and say, I'm posting this publicly, so it'll go into the search engines, or I'm posting just for one of my circles. But in terms of social networks, I would say that's Twitter, by far and away. Yes? Yes, I'm going to put this on SlideShare. And if you have any other questions, just michael@socialradius.com. But I'll have this on SlideShare, and you can look up my name on SlideShare, and I'll have that posted probably by tomorrow. Okay, thank you very much.